So I mean, if it's that simple, like, you know, do it, good luck, and that's pretty much all I have to say. But that's not obviously not the truth. There's way more to it. So just kidding. Let's get back in. How many of you here have run or are running Google Ads or Facebook ads or Instagram ads and anything like that? Just a couple of you guys. Are you still running them now, or did you pause them? So what was the reason you decided to stop, if you don't mind me asking?
I wanted to see the numbers. So we placed an ad for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we specifically catered to, you know, whatever it was, keywords, age range, location as well. And out of, I guess what, $10 more, something like that. Out of the maybe 5,000 views, I guess you would say, the amount that clicked on it was less than 100.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's the SEO, I don't know if maybe it's just a more deep diving into the words that we put into the ad itself, but it wasn't creating.
It wasn't generating for you.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the most common complaints that I've heard. Like, I talk to different businesses every day, you know, sole proprietors, 1, 2 employees, 500 plus employee businesses that do, you know, home service, e-commerce, doctors, lawyers, really anyone you can think of. And this is usually what I hear, you know, multiple times per day. Ads are too expensive, which again can be true depending on how they're run. Me personally, this is the person speaking, I skip the ads, so why should I be there? The fact is that more than 50% of people now actually click on the ads on desktop, and on mobile, since the ad takes up almost the entire screen, around 60% of people click on the ads. So while you yourself, in this case, might not click on the ads, most people are. Don't have enough control. Again, can be true. There are ways to set up ads really quick, and then they don't really give you the full picture of what's going on. We'll talk about some of the actual settings you can see, and most common is I've tried it before, it doesn't work. So if we can tell you, like, hey, we've seen it work, give me an industry or give me a type of business, we can tell you about case studies we've had in those spaces, like, we can definitely make it work for you. And the reason why things don't work typically is because most people don't do this, which is what, you know, you can be doing. So once the ads are built, you get to see analytics or data into those actual people. What's their age, what's their gender, what's their location, what cities are they coming from, what keywords are they searching, and once you are able to start kind of drilling down into this individual, you can create a repeatable and scalable process. If you know, like, hey, I'm advertising all over New York City, but for whatever reason, Long Island is performing the best, or, you know, wherever, the Bronx, doesn't matter. You can funnel your budget from the low performing areas to the higher. Same thing if you see like a specific age range. Hey, I thought my customer was going to be, you know, between the ages of 25 to 35, but really after running the campaigns, I saw it's a higher age range. So let me actually bid less on the younger audience and more on the older because they bring me more business. So there's a lot that you can do. You just have to kind of look at the data. Oh, oops. And whoops. Why search? Because that's usually where most things start nowadays. If you're looking for anything like a video production company, you're going to go to Google and search for maybe video production near me or video production case studies. And that's really how most people start their day. They're thinking about something like, let me Google that really quick. And if you're able to give them a solution or option based on what you do, you'll be hopefully able to capture their business. And the journey has changed a lot, whereas before it was probably more linear. You would search, you would find something, you'd call them. Now there's so much other stuff that happens. People have 2.5 devices on average in their homes. It could be a phone, laptop, tablet, or desktop. So they're actually doing these searches across multiple devices. They're also consuming other radio like, I don't know, newspaper or radio or display, video. And if you're able to hit them at these various spots or maybe various parts of this process, you'll be hopefully more likely to win their business. Here's a quick example of one person trying to decide what car they're going to be purchasing. And in a 4-day period, and it's a bit tough to read, they had 134 interaction points between the day that they decided they wanted to start to the day they actually made some options. Maybe they visited a dealership or maybe they called some dealerships. So there's a lot that happens, and you can try and be present for various parts of these and see, you know, how you can fit into their specific journey. So every business is a bit different. You know, what this person went through and their customer might be different than your customer, and we try and help you understand where you might fit into that journey. You can see, while we're talking mainly about search, you can actually hit them on different types or different parts of Google's network, which is pretty huge. It covers around 80% of the web, including apps, video, Google search, and YouTube search, which is the second largest search engine. So there's a lot of places you can hit them should you feel the need to. Now, I think the reason why you came here, again, happy hour is next door, starting in 30 minutes, but if you did come here to learn about data, that's what I'm gonna talk to you about. When I talk to people, which I do every day, they all have their own opinions on what they think is best for their business and who the audience is, and I don't discredit that by any means. But what we like to do is say, all right, I hear you, I hear what you're saying about who your customer is, but let's actually take a look at the ads you've run, or let's take a look at your analytics and see who that customer is. What I've seen more times than not is they actually don't have things like conversion tracking set up, so they can't really effectively tell me maybe who visited their website, sure, but who actually called you, who filled out a form. So that's usually where we start. Because before we can start gathering data, we have to really understand who these people are and how they interact with your site. Why you guys are probably here is because marketing is getting super expensive. It's going to continue to get expensive as time goes on. More advertisers are going to start joining these networks. Like I mentioned before, there's 4 million people advertising on Google now. That number is going to continue to increase. As more advertisers join, the costs per click are getting higher. So the way to hopefully keep some of that money that you're spending on ads or get a return on it is by looking at who's coming to your site and maximizing it. Here you can see in the e-commerce field over the past few years how the costs have risen. I mean, it still might not seem like that much. Hey, it's risen from 50 cents to $1. But if that trend continues again over the next 5 years, that same click on 2016, which was 50 cents, might be $2 in 2025 or 2026. So again, there's no real wrong time to get into advertising. I'm sure we'll still be advertising in five years from now online. It'll be more expensive than it was today, but we'll have been glad that we were there when it started. Alex, who just joined, is one of the founders of the company. Before starting SmartSites, he actually ran his own hosting company. So similar to like GoDaddy and GeoCities and things like that. When he first had the opportunity to advertise on Google, the cost was like 30 cents per click. This was 15, 20 years ago. Now that same click is probably $30 to $50. And when he started, he was complaining about how expensive it was. Little did he know 20 years ago that it was going to be 100x of what it was. So again, maybe it'll be 100x in another 20 years. So why not start today when it is hopefully a little cheaper?
Can you talk about the reason? I know audience fragmentation is one reason to why advertisement is so expensive. Mm-hmm. Can you give us a little more insight on what other factors are influencing these prices?
So Google specifically is basically an auction system. If I wanted to be the #1 for a particular keyword, while the average click, let's say, might be $1, I can actually bid $1.50 if I want to know that I want to appear #1 all the time. So now I'm #1 and my competitor sees, oh man, these guys are bidding $1.50, let me bid $1. And then another player comes to market, and while they might be bidding lower than us, it still drives up the entire cost because the more advertisers that come into play, just the more expensive things we'll get.
And how do you know how much the competitors are paying?
So there are a lot of tools out there that we use to get an idea of just like what your costs might be. So like let's just say video production, maybe that's not the best keyword for you, but let's just say, for example, you can go to Google AdWords keyword planner tool, type in that keyword, type in an area, because let's say you wanted to advertise in New York, that click might be more or less expensive than Texas or California or Florida, because it's not just about the keyword, it's also about the region. There's a lot that goes into it, but you can use that to see your own costs. And then for competitors, some larger ones, you can see their numbers using tools like SpyFu, SEMrush. Most of them have like a free trial where you can do a couple of searches. We're in there all the time. You can see like people's ad copy, what keywords they're bidding on, how much they're spending on the keywords. So it kind of gives you an idea of what to expect or what to start with, but certainly not like the perfect solution. Good question though. And I'm going to just go over the specific costs. This kind of leads back to what I mentioned before, where while people spend more time on digital and are going to continue, the spend on digital is still not quite where it should be or where it might be. All right, so how do we understand data? First step is to understand your customer and the life cycle. Someone visits your website, that's probably the most general information that you can get from analytics. Like, hey, I got 1,000 visitors per month. That's great. Like, how many leads did you get? I don't know. So this is probably the first thing you want to start identifying. How many calls did you get if you're B2B, or how many contact forms? If you're e-commerce, how many sales did you get? And start developing this funnel so you can eventually figure out, all right, now I know how many leads I got, that's awesome. how many leads do I need to actually convert them into a qualified lead or a proposal or eventually a customer? So if you have this already figured out, that's awesome. Many people haven't gotten to this step yet. I think it's a really great way to understand your business. And the reason why I'm talking about it now is because, let's just say, for example, you know that one visit costs you 50 cents or $1. You can eventually track back and say, all right, how many clicks do I need really to get a customer at the end of the day? So this is a good place, I think, to start for a lot of businesses who are just trying to figure out marketing. It's easy to kind of go day by day, especially as a new business or a small business owner. But taking a step back and trying to think about some of these things I think are really important. Not only are we going to understand what they're searching, which is a big part of it. Hey, I'm bidding on 100 keywords. These 30 keywords perform really well. They drive a lot of traffic, a lot of interest. These 30, they drive traffic but no contact forms, like maybe I shouldn't bid on them. So for example, we work with a lot of home service clients, and what we've seen, and it's kind of transferable to a lot of businesses, is people would search for like say for a roofer, DIY roofing. Probably not a good idea to do your own roof, but if you did, you go to Google and search DIY. Now all of a sudden you click on this guy's ad because you thought you could learn about how to build your own roof. But in reality, that person just didn't set up their ads correctly, and they just paid $20 for someone to click on their website and then be like, oh, that's not what I want, go back. Other stuff we've seen is like cheap roofers. Maybe you are a cheaper solution, but the person that's searching for a cheap roofing solution might not be willing to spend the tens of twenties of thousands of dollars it costs to replace. Or maybe like roofer YouTube. So there's so many like basic keywords that you could negate. Usually when we start the campaign, we want to input like 500 negative keywords into Google. So a negative keyword is basically like, if someone searches for DIY, I don't want to be appearing for that term. Most businesses that I've seen, like they have a solid list, maybe 10 to 20 negative keywords that they've maybe developed over many years. But by really fine-tuning it right out of the gate, you can block a lot of the traffic that's just not going to be probably profitable for you. So Google gives you all this stuff. It's a little scary, honestly. Facebook has taken some steps to maybe make the privacy a bit better. Not that Facebook is a perfect company by any means, but that's, again, another conversation. With Google, you can see a lot of the information about things like age, gender, location, marital status, household income, and by default, all these things are like, hey, I want to advertise everything, which I think is totally fine. Why not? But let's just say, for example, you're selling, I don't know, Medicare for seniors. You probably don't want to advertise to someone to 18 to 24 years old because they wouldn't be your customer unless you told me, hey, actually, a lot of them are the granddaughters or the grandsons or the sons of these old elder people, so I actually do want to advertise to this younger audience. But this is a good place to start. You can kind of get a good sense. And usually what I tell most of my clients is to start broad and then start moving some of these needles based on what you see working and not. There's even
Can you do locations?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do the demographics. You can do interests, which you'll see here. So if you know your audience is interested in something specifically, you can select a few and then either positively or negatively adjust your bids based on those interests. Then locations. So let's say you have a national company, you can bid all over the USA, and then start to break down your leads and traffic by state. Let's say you just target New York. You can do it as, macro as the 5 boroughs, or even like, hey, maybe I want to break down New York City, Manhattan into 30 different neighborhoods, and I can see that certain parts of New York City perform better. You can shift your budget there. So yeah, great question. Definitely something you can do and something we recommend. Google is also very tricky. A lot of the setup that they give you by default is, I don't want to say set up for your failure, but set up for your failure. The reason for that is because there are a lot of settings that if you don't really look at them or manage them, you could get a lot of clicks and a lot of traffic, but it might not even come from this country. Like you can say, hey, I actually targeted USA in my ads, but you didn't click the right settings, so you're getting a lot of traffic from various other countries, which maybe you don't service them, so why are you paying for all this traffic? So there's a lot of ways that you could build these campaigns that just won't work if you don't take a close eye. So someone's got to keep Google in check, and that's what we're here for. I think there's more. All right, so we're nearing the end, and now we're just going to talk about like data and how it's interesting, at least to me. I've been in this business for 10 years, and there's still cool stuff that I find out working with all new types of businesses all the time. And yeah, let's talk about some things that maybe are stereotypical or things that people might just like assume. So if you think of like the automotive business, you think that's more of maybe a manly service for whatever reason. Maybe you think that more business gets done in major cities. Botox is for elderly people, and home service best business comes from 9 to 5. So as you can probably guess, the insights that you're going to see are different than what people might expect. Then we'll talk about some more specific examples. So maybe this is true in some cases, but what we've seen from various clients we work with doing things like replacement headlights, exhausts, compressors, is that while maybe men account for a larger part of the business in some cases, actually the female customer in what we've seen actually has a higher cart value. So maybe there's less in that particular case, but in this instance, they spend more on the same services. So while we wouldn't say, hey, let's actually exclude one sector or the other, there's just some interesting things that we've seen over the years. This probably is due, honestly, to COVID, where people more often were heading into a city for work. But now in recent years, like, we actually get a lot of business targeting outside of New York. Like, while we would target mainly New York City, we're getting a lot of business from North Jersey, Westchester, Long Island, because people maybe they aren't going into their main offices like they used to. So we're getting higher conversions from the suburbs than we are from major cities. Yeah, this one, but there's no, everyone is free to do whatever they like. When I think of Botox, things like someone who's maybe a bit older, but there's actually a larger audience of both men and women who are getting Botox earlier in their life because it makes them feel good. So why exclude those customers based on what we think and just kind of look at the data. And last one, yeah, if you're willing to wake up early and you're in the home service business, a lot of people are gonna be calling you at 6 a.m. Maybe it's before they start their day, maybe it's after they're ending their evening, who knows. But a lot happens in the wee early mornings for home service clients. So if that's the space for you, it's a fun tip to know. All right, now we're gonna go through a couple more slides and then done. Happy hour is almost around the corner. Last year, as I mentioned, we managed 50 million in paid search, but we're gonna be looking at a small sector of B2B businesses. So it's a $6 million total spend last year, around 100 clients, that's totaling the spend. And what we're gonna look at is a couple of surprising insights. There are so many things you could do, like you mentioned location. That's certainly a way you can segment data, but we're just looking at a couple and we'll go from there. So since this is a B2B business and not an e-commerce business, we're not tracking direct sales. We're tracking phone calls and contact forms, so those are the conversions that we're looking at. So here we have 3 devices, all going after the same exact type of keyword, and I'll just reveal to you the different devices. So in this case, computer, kind of middle of the road, $6.22. Mobile phone, way more expensive, $7.67. And tablet coming in for the very, very low cost of $2.74 per click, again, for these 100 businesses on average. So you might guess that, hey, the lowest cost per click, let me just bid all my money on tablet because that's probably gonna give you the best return. As you might guess, not gonna be the case. In this particular instance, the desktop had a conversion value of around $136 to get a phone call or contact form. Mobile came in way cheaper, $93 to get the same quality of lead. And tablet is struggling over there with $150 cost per lead. So it doesn't necessarily correlate that the highest cost per click is gonna drive you the highest cost per lead, and same with the lowest cost per click, not necessarily gonna be the lowest cost per lead. That's a fun transition. Cost per lead by gender. So gender is obviously, there's lots of fluidity here, and the way Google represents it is into male, female, and then just uncategorized. So while you may think B2B business is more like man heavy or whatever, not always the case. You know, in this particular example, the cost per lead for a female was $93. Cost per lead for a male was a bit higher, $102. But again, probably wouldn't be a instance where I say like, hey, let's stop bidding on one section or the other. Both of them are pretty close, and let's just see what happens.
Are there general trends that traffic for male is higher?
I feel like it depends on the business. You know, I don't know, like for cosplay, maybe it's higher percent male or female, I don't know. But the amount of people searching for that term is probably going to be like in the thousands per day. How many of that is broken down into like one space or the other? Probably very business dependent. Cost per lead by age. So again, you can see the corresponding cost per click by age range. So what I've seen, at least for my business, is that the younger audience, like 18 to 24, they're not going to be able to afford like a premium solution to purchase services. So I know off the bat that this audience, while it might be the lowest cost per click, the cost per lead probably not going to be great. And then another factor to consider is, this is kind of like going more in depth, but let's just say, for example, 18 to 24 did have the lowest cost per lead. Does that necessarily mean that they're the best leads? Not necessarily. So that's why it's important to build that funnel out. So you can kind of see like, all right, this person turned into a lead, they actually turn into a sale later down the line. So the big reveal, out of those 100 plus businesses, 6 million in spend, these were some of the winners. Again, not necessarily the highest click is the highest cost per lead, not necessarily the lowest click is the lowest cost per lead. I think you guys, I think I get the trend, but I would like to ask you, if you were to guess, what do you think the highest cost per lead day and the lowest cost per lead day would be for a B2B business? So what we do for a lot of our customers is advertise Monday through Sunday, 24 hours a day. And then as we see like, hey, whatever reason, Tuesdays, you're getting a lot of traffic but no phone calls, we might say like, let's not bid there. Hint, it's not Tuesday for the highest or the lowest, or maybe it is, kind of forget. So really quick, you can shout it out, or let's make it more civilized. Who thinks that Monday is going to be the lowest performer?
So as in
like the highest cost per lead,
Mondays.
Who thinks it's going to be the best performer? Tuesday is highest, lowest. Wednesday. All right. So let's just see what we're looking at here. Saturday, terrible for B2B businesses. Probably guess that not too much businesses happens after hours. Me, I try to shut my phone off at 6 o'clock. Doesn't necessarily always happen, but Saturday and Sunday, getting emails, but I'm not necessarily engaging with businesses. You probably see the same thing for yourself. Next, probably not surprised, Sunday, also another weekend. And then things get maybe more interesting from here. Friday, it's Friday today. Again, most people I think are here physically, but thinking about happy hour next door, which I'm totally there with you. So after 2 p.m. on Friday, that's usually things stop happening, maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way. But as the days progress, you can start seeing, again, for your business, it might be different. This is just for a certain set of businesses across the country that certain days perform better than others. The answer is Wednesday, in this case. All right. We don't have to go through every single hour of the day, but again, you can really get granular here. You can look at maybe what times of day people are bidding on or clicking on your ads and when the conversion is happening. And I think the last thing I want to talk about is, while I gave you a couple of different segments here, you can actually take all this data and start kind of compiling it together. So let's say you notice a certain area or location is performing well, and a certain age range is performing well, and a certain maybe time of day. Take all that information, put it together, and you have like a really good customer set. You can say like, hey, I get some really awesome leads during the hours of 3 to 5 p.m. on Wednesdays from people that are the ages of 25 to 34 in the top percent income. So at a certain point, while you're kind of breaking down the numbers by a good amount, you can hopefully drive your traffic into people who are going to be super interested based on what you've seen in the past. And now what? Hopefully you can take and use some of the things that I told you about today. Really start, if you have an ad running, take a look into some of the settings and kind of just like question it, or maybe do some Google searching, or talk to me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And just see like what you can do to maximize your campaigns. And a couple of things that I want to talk about, and then 30 seconds, take some questions. What are my final thoughts? Customers are spending more now on marketing, or more time online than ever before. That's probably going to continue. There are billions of people who are on the web every single day for 4 hours a day or 40 years of their life. So yeah, get in front of them. They're spending their time there. Marketing is expensive already, not going to lie. It's going to get more expensive. The example I gave you before, in a 20-year period, one click went from 30 cents to $30. That trend may continue over the next 10, 20 years. So unless people start falling away from Google, which is also possible, why not get in now and give it a shot? Marketing can be expensive, but maybe data is what you can do personally to make your ads better, to make your ads perform better. And last thought is just, it's not too late. If you're running it now, it can always be better. If you ran in the past and you gave up, give it a shot again with maybe some of the tools you learned about today. And if you never tried it, maybe try it tomorrow, or Monday. Tomorrow's the weekend. But that's it for me, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
And
I have a question. When you start out with a client and you see maybe, I'm just using round numbers, they spend $100 to get a customer.
yep.
But once you start drilling down, you start maximizing their data and you start honing down the times and days and all that, do you see that drop dramatically, or do you just see it pretty much staying the same?
Well, it depends on your goal. Like, let's say you have a fixed budget and your goal is just to maybe squeeze out a few more clients or leads from that budget. Like, we can try and do that over the course of time. Or maybe you tell me that we worked together for a few months. Let's just say, for example, you spend $2,000 and you got $5,000 back in B2B sales. If you're like, I'm really happy with that, just like, let's continue and let's keep turning that out, we can do that. Or if we said, I actually want to grow that, we can say, all right, next month, let's increase your spend by 10%. And if all goes well, which it should, because it's almost a one-to-one relationship, you should see a 10% or 20% increase in your bottom line. So depending on your goal, we have clients that started out by spending like $1,500 on ads, and now they're spending $1,500 a month, or were spending $1,500 a month. Now they spend $1,500 a day because they see, like, for every dollar they put in, they're going to get $5 back. So why not crank it out if they have the operations behind it?
So you don't think there's not much correlation between actually using the data and finessing the times and the days and all that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
To get more money back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's like, let's say your cost per lead was $200. Our goal would be to bring it down lower and lower and lower. And at a certain point, like, you can't really go much lower, but we'll try and maximize it to the best point that we can, and then from there, hopefully scale. Any other questions? All right. Well, that's wrong. We have a booth 3212. If you haven't stopped by, there's light bulbs, pens, koozies, tote bags, lots of fun stuff. They're also setting up consultations for next week if you want to meet. And then anyone who comes to the consultation, we give them $10 Starbucks gift card just to say thanks for spending some time with us. But thanks for spending some time with me, and enjoy happy hour.
Andrew.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of the show.